The Port Podcast with Craig Bell Estabrooks. Well, welcome to the Port Podcast. We've got a great guest today, Ron Marcolin. Ron is with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association, looking after New Brunswick and PEI, and it has been quite a year.
It certainly has. And first things first, thanks so much for having me in your new studio. And this is wonderful. We're right next to Liberty of the Seas, which is docked next to us today, which is one stunning ship, I might add.
It is, and this space is really special because it's entirely for the use for the crew. Crew get to have a space that they can come and unwind and disconnect a little bit from the passengers they're serving for the rest of the day. So really cool space.
That's good. And us crazy cruise ship passengers at times, get a little crazy. So it's good the crew can sort of decompress.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of decompress, your year has been absolutely wild. From the election of President Trump to almost immediately after his swearing in, tariffs. Becoming a topic that most people probably wouldn't consider in their day-to-day lives, but now is so pressing. We've had, two Canadian prime ministers. We've had an election, fought largely on tariffs and trade with the United States. Tell us a little bit about your year.
So to call it wild is an understatement, Craig. I mean, it's a bit bizarre, to be honest, at times. So just maybe a bit of background. We represent, thousands of manufacturers in Canada, most of which are exporters, but it's not exclusive. And we do large companies that you know by name, but we also do small and medium companies as well. And their lives have been turned upside down. I mean, all of us as consumers, our lives have been turned upside down. We don't exactly know what to expect at the grocery store, for example, when it comes to prices. And obviously inflation is not helping at all, but that seems to be sort of cooling a bit, which is great. But when it comes to Trump and tariffs, as you may remember, 8 to 9 months ago, things were being brought in, proclamations, and then they would evaporate 48 hours later. So there was a start and stop and unpredictability. And in all fairness, as you know all too well, business can't really continue to have progress with that. I mean, it's just unpredictability, and we as business people need predictability. So all the great planning that our manufacturers in New Brunswick and elsewhere did for 2025 sort of evaporated because, of course, they didn't know what to think. Trump was going to make a new proclamation, and again, then everything changed again.
Yeah. I remember back from a port perspective in March and April, it seemed like every week something new was coming up that would just dominate the headlines, and you almost forgot that 2 weeks earlier you were dealing with something else major. And as you know better than anyone, St. John got tagged with kind of a significant label that we're the most tariff exposed municipality city. Now, I think a lot of us, yourself included, have corrected that. They were judging that, I think it was the Canadian Chamber or a Western Canadian-based chamber was looking at just the value of the exports, and oil and gas being such a predominant export, they were saying if that had been tariffed at a significantly high rate, we would be very exposed to that. But tell us a little bit about the other side of that. There's been opportunity come from some of the companies that you work with.
Oh, absolutely. And just quickly to talk to you about the tariff specifically to oil and gas. Yes, it is skewed. And obviously, as you know all too well, from a port perspective, specifically here in Port St. John. Yes, so the other slice of that is all the other non-petroleum related exports and potential exports for your port and other ports in Canada. And I think it's very fair to say if some of our members across country, and including New Brunswick obviously, have not tried to export, and that may sound a little odd to some because, they have a geographic advantage being literally right next to the United States. They have great lanes of travel and traffic to the United States, mostly, the Northeast in particular, Boston area, for example, and they used it. They've used it for, years, decades.
Very lucrative trade.
Yeah, exactly, and very successful. And now they've sort of had to look outside the box. So now it's like, okay, what are our other options? Well, that's where Port St. John comes in, because it may be an opportunity to diversify. And I know in concept, diversification is great. You got to get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
And of course, Port St. John and DP World and obviously CPKC and others can help and are a huge advantage to a local New Brunswick manufacturer, but I mean, certainly a lot broader than New Brunswick. But our message to them is try exporting. Go and use your potential traffic, lanes of traffic, obviously, to Europe. You know, to some, it's low-hanging fruit. Why wouldn't you try that as a good business opportunity?
Yeah, and we've been talking to some of the same companies you have, and I think there's a fear of the unknown, and it's very
Correct.
normal. You've set up your companies. Often, some of the companies I know that you work closely with are generational. They're family-owned companies,
Yep.
or they're fairly new enterprises that have had tremendous success doing it the way they've done it for the last number of years.
That's right.
So to propose a big change is a shift, but also
Yes.
they may not have the people inside those companies that know the markets in Europe as well as they know them in the United States because of the proximity and who they've hired through the years. So how is your association helping a company, let's say company X wants to really get into the European market more, wants to explore that opportunity? How are you helping facilitate that?
So what we do, first of all, is encourage them to look at opportunities. And in fairness, not every opportunity is going to be a fit, but that's okay. They should look at options. That's very prudent. They know that in North America, obviously. Why wouldn't they look offshore? So what we are is, in essence, a middleman when things like that come up, and we connect them with government agencies. There are some very good government agencies that work for exporters, or in this case, a potential exporter from New Brunswick that really doesn't know that much about Europe, other than maybe they've been there themselves on a personal holiday. Yeah. They've never done business in Europe. They don't know, where exactly the best market is. So they really use the government facilities and experts and various agencies, whether it's financial or marketing or what have you, to diversify and at least look at those options. People may not realize Belgium is a very good opportunity compared to the Netherlands, even though they're literally right next door in a very short distance. But there could be strategic advantages to go to Belgium versus The Hague in Netherlands, let's say, or Rotterdam, what have you.
So we're hearing from the federal government, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing. Trade diversification, is kind of the brand, but there's some underlying details that would signify if we're able to pull this off, a kind of a real generational shift. So post NAFTA, trade with the United States, exports have been roughly that 70 to 75%. So massive trade. If we were to go down to a number, still significant trade with the US, but if we were to go to a 55% of our exports to the United States and really diversify, that is a monumental shift.
Right.
So how do you as an organization that's really on the front line of this, how do you help folks process if that is truly what the new goal is going to be of Canada?
Well, and you make a very good point. I mean, it's not like people are giving up on the United States, nor should they.
No.
Because it's a very lucrative market. Right. Again, we have a geographic advantage. Yep. It makes a lot of sense and prudent business sense to obviously have customers in the United States, again, back to lanes of travel and diversification within their product mix as well.
Yeah.
But what we're really saying is try out different markets. Don't put all your eggs in one basket in the United States. Try out different markets. And again, because we're so close to Europe, as the crow flies, as the ship sails, go to Europe. It just makes a lot of logical sense. We
Trade
don't have
deals.
Right. And we don't have an issue with language. We don't have an issue realistically with currency. I mean, there's different currency, but generally speaking, they all have the same customs as in lifestyle and whatnot. Right. Very easy to deal with. We have history, obviously, with Europe. I mean, for the most part, a lot of us are Europeans, back in the day, as it were, lineage being what it is. So there's a lot of natural connections with Europe. So what our answer is try it out. Use it as a bit of a test. get something as small as one container or 6 or 10 containers of your product.
Yep.
Use the government agencies because they have the people on the ground in Europe.
Right, they do.
And, it is a bit foreign to a Canadian company that's never done that before, and it could be a little unsettling.
And we're trying to help too through our team that you work closely with, Shannon Blanchard and Peter Shaw.
Yes.
We try to do the exact same thing. So I think it's a combination effort. And that's why our organizations, it's so key that we collaborate together on this. So on that collaboration vein, I got to meet you and get to know your organization a lot a few years ago with an event you host in Fredericton.
Yes.
And I was blown away. And have been since you gave me the opportunity to speak a few years ago at the port, and then I've been an attendee the last number of years as well. I'm blown away at the depth of issues you guys dive into. You are pro worker. You're looking at housing. You just give us a feel for the things you advocate for, because it is much wider than I think the public knows.
Yes, so advocacy is certainly one of the things we deal with. So yes, housing, as you say, is one issue. We've had labor issues with WorkSafe over the years. We have helped in regards to the rates of WorkSafe. They're now very manageable in the province of New Brunswick. So we've dealt with that. We've certainly dealt with the provincial government on various things, anywhere from safety in the workplace to, you name it. Now we're talking property tax, which is a bit interesting to some. We've talked power rates, EUB. We've done a whole bunch of those pieces of the advocacy puzzle.
Right.
And it is interesting because a lot of manufacturers obviously are very ingrained in their communities. And there are even some local levels. I mean, here in St. John, there are a series of local levels that we help out with, or local issues, I should say. But provincial wide, they're normally the big issues. What other people don't know about us is our second bucket of service, as it were, to the membership is training. So we actually are trainers, and we go into the plants and we go into the various locations, and we train them on a wide variety of things. And then, as you say, education and events. So our biggest event is Manufacturing Day.
It's incredible.
And it does get everybody in the same room. We're very fortunate. We have the premier of the day as our keynote. So most recently, Premier Holt was our keynote, and she was very well received. Prior to her, we had Premier Higgs. He also was very well received. And there's no question the premiers won't answer. It's very fair. They're very open. They want to hear our conversations and our issues. They want to talk to the plant worker. They want to talk to the business owner. They want to talk to us, obviously, as industry associations. But it just gives people a good chance to sort of compare notes. Sometimes on the technical sort of side of a business, sometimes financial, sometimes it's HR, operational. It really varies. But because we have a varied membership in the province, we have an event with a varied sort of theme to it. So there is some government and there is some other, obviously, operational things too.
Well, it's clear, and talking to, we interact with a lot of the companies that you represent. You've had a lot of success, and you've really moved the needle for these companies, and I think that's what's made your event and your interaction so positive, because they know that when you're going to put the weight of your organization behind an issue, you're going to move the needle for them. So I think that's kind of why you have, in my opinion, why you have that great event.
Well, thank you for that. But it has something to do also with the guest speakers we have, like yourself, that have a great story to tell. And in fairness, it's awareness as well, because let's face it, Port St. John is going to a whole new level. And there are certain things, also in fairness, that you may not have had here. I mean, I look across the harbor and I see Americold going up, and I see Crosby's doing a lot of great things with the rail spur, among others, and the modernization. Wow, the laydown area, I mean, is very, very impressive. And I'm so very fortunate to have a tour recently. But every time I tour Port St. John, I'm even more impressed, because there's even more new stuff to look at.
We've got lots of big ideas.
Yes,
I've got even more too. So I'm really hoping that Trade Diversification Fund comes through.
Coming through,
because we love to spend money here on we're proud of our infrastructure, as you know. But
absolutely
appreciate that. I just have more of an interest for me. How do you, leading a major kind of group of very diverse companies, land on an issue to then advocate on behalf of the greater group? How do you decide that this is the priority of the day?
Well, that's a very good question, because when the phone rings, sometimes things change all too well and very fast.
Right.
So that's a good question, though. I think it's fair to say, so we have teams at the national level within CME in both Toronto and Ottawa that deal mostly with the federal issues.
Okay.
Now, of course, the federal issues are just that. They're all across the country, but some land here in St. John, New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Others aren't as, maybe urgent or don't necessarily apply. So I'd say some of those provincial issues, we're very fortunate. We have teams that take care of those. But the provincial issues I take care of in the province of PEI and New Brunswick. So we're very integrated with the government. There's great lines of communication with the provincial government. And then interestingly enough, until, a number of years ago, 5 years ago or so, we didn't do too many municipal issues, or not too many municipal issues came to a head, but now we're doing that as well, because they're very relatable to business, or to a member of ours that's dealing with a very specific piece of business. So what we do is lend support. We lend research help or economic data help. We are very fortunate. We have different teams, as I mentioned, that can support even municipal asks. Yeah. So, obviously we represent business. That's what we eat and breathe every day is business. And if we see there's an issue that we can help with, we put up our hand and help.
So I want to switch gears just slightly and talk about the future in companies that don't yet exist that you will represent at some point. So I feel very passionate about this from a port standpoint.
Right.
We're moving a lot of cargo, more than we ever have.
Yes.
And it's from all across the country. So Central Canada has been the economic powerhouse of this country for over a century. And we know that, and we're proud to service a lot of Ontario-based companies that your colleagues across the country represent. We need more jobs and economic opportunity right here in New Brunswick, though.
Of course. Yeah.
And what I would love to see is more cargo come available that's New Brunswick based, that's here, and maybe through awareness from your organization, ours, others, someone sets up an opportunity because they see an export play in Belgium, as you mentioned earlier, and they set up a brand new company because of that. How do we get what are the things we need to do to make New Brunswick more attractive from a manufacturing standpoint? How do we get a lot more companies interested?
Right. So I think it's very fair to say the government has to be involved at a provincial level, at a federal level as well. And there are various pieces of the puzzle that already exist.
Right.
But I think it's a matter of putting business and economic development on the front burner. I think it's very fair to say that we've had it on the back burner for a number of years. And now we need to get it on the front burner. We have, quite frankly, just to dummy it down, we have bills to pay. We need economic activity. We need the jobs, and we need the training to get the people in the right seats on the bus to get there, right? Or I should have said the right
as I'm looking at the ship.
That's right. As I'm looking at the ship behind you. But the point is, you have to have government involvement. They are experts in certain things, but in fairness, it's a teamwork approach. There are industry associations like ours that have been in the trenches for years and years. We need to be helpful as well, but we also have to include the idea makers, the people that are the brainstormers, the visionaries, to look to those new products and look to, again, we're looking at Belgium just as an example among many. Look to get people in Belgium to look at opportunities, but also look at them building them here. In other words, build the widget here, freight it out of St. John, have the market in Belgium, connect all the dots, and obviously everybody wins. But you have to have the various people in the puzzle to help you. And what I can say is, looking at Port St. John, you have certainly done a great job in getting all those pieces of the puzzle organized. Again, modernization just all by itself is an absolutely fantastic piece of that puzzle. But now you have a new operator with DP World.
Getting everyone,
Right. And you have CPKC and you have Americold. And, it's a long list of success. Now it's a matter of filling, obviously, the sea cans and getting them moving. And I know there's a lot of inbound. You're looking at getting outbound, and that's very important.
And I know one thing for sure, you're going to play a big role in helping us do that. So we really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. This has been excellent. Your insights are very valuable to our listeners, and you've been a wonderful organization to partner with for the port.
Well, thank you so much for being part of our organization and having me have time to speak with you today. This has been great. Always good to compare notes.
Excellent. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.